Moin, ihr wunderbare Menschen des Interwebs. Ich begrüße euch ganz herzlich zurück zu meinem Let's Play von The Great Ace-Attorney Chronicles. Wir sind hier stehen geblieben und wollten uns einmal mit diesen zwei Zeugen unterhalten. Es hieß ja, ein Polizist sei der eine Zeuge. Gut, ja, schauen wir mal, was die beiden zu sagen haben. Constable Rolly Bay. Nothing to report on the streets. And I'm Mrs. Beate. Patricia's my name. I'm proud to say I'm this young town hero's wife. What's the story here? Well, in truth, we've not been married long. In fact, we celebrated our first anniversary only the other day. No, it was your husband I was asking about. He seems tired. Hardly surprising. Whilst being an honorable occupation, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world. Oh, really? I'm sure I've heard that before, actually. Indeed, apart from rare days of our gallant officers through some 20 miles a day, you know. They patrol boarding houses and pubs, collect taxes, survey the streets, check the meters are reading true, and they are responsible for keeping the streets clean and lighting and extinguishing our street lights. There are a number of items on the list that don't sound much like policing duties at all. I wouldn't just be falling asleep on my feet, I would have collapsed long ago. But it goes without saying that a policeman's primary duty is the apprehension of criminals. Even when he's off duty, a constable is expected to investigate and resolve any crimes on his beat. But our London Bobby is a man of honor. And a man of slumber. On the day in question, this man and his wife were walking down Briar Road in the opposite direction, and they witnessed the incident as it occurred. Is that not correct, Mr. and Mrs. Also ich werde jetzt immer Beate sagen, ich glaube, das ist halt nicht richtig, aber... That's right, sir, isn't it, Rolly? Ich glaube, Rolly. Constable Rolly Beate. Nothing to report on the streets. What a great witness he's going to be. Aber ey, die schauen doch aus wie Kinder. Very good. I would like to hear your formal testimonies now, please. You will tell the court exactly what you saw on the afternoon on the incident. Yes, sir. Also, oder nicht? Also, für mich sehen die halt echt aus wie Kinder. It was our wedding anniversary and Rolly was taking me out for a meal. There was no time to change after work. Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor, then the other scattered something before running off. We ran straight over course and then went for help at a nearby police box. It was definitely the Japanese man in the dog. Rolly and I both saw him as clear as day. Well, this is extremely compelling testimony, I must say. Oh dear, this policeman and his wife are claiming to have positively identified Mr. Natsume at the scene. If their testimony is true, the alternative course of events that you established in the summation examination will be squashed. It's definitely in fact, because that alternative was never viable in the first place. What an unfortunate changing, and on your wedding anniversary too. Oh, I know, but I still managed to go out for the evening with my man. I thank the Lord for that. Gosh, the life of a London Bobby sounds very hard indeed. Indeed, however, this cross-examination will be over in minutes. You may well have time to rest this afternoon. What do you mean by that? My learned friend, the witnesses saw the face of the man fleeing the scene. They are testifying under oath that it was without doubt the accused, Mr. Suseki Natsume. And one of these witnesses is a policeman, no less, so you appreciate the gravity of the situation, I'm sure. Except that the man's so tired, his wife has to do all the talking. Enough preamble. Counsel for the defense, commence the cross-examination, please. Yes, my lord. Gut, dann würde ich einfach mal sagen, hören wir uns einfach mal überall an, was die hier uns mitzuteilen haben. No time to change after work, you say? Are you also a member of the police, Mrs. Beate? Oh no, sadly not. It's a job for strapping young men only. Women, children, and the elderly can't even apply. Well, I think you can probably see why children and the elderly can't do the job, can't you? I think Raleigh looks ever so handsome in his uniform. It suits you down the ground, doesn't it, darling? Well, I just finished my bead. Pat and I were heading back to the station. I was actually planning on getting changed there. Is he talking in his sleep? This is creepy. Oh no, Rowley, I much prefer you in uniform. Sometimes I don't recognize you when I see you in plain clothes. Oh dear, that doesn't seem healthy. Kindly either to the point. You were going for a meal after you had finished your beat for the day, correct? That's right, sir. Yes. Also, I was fit to drop, to be honest, after spending the whole day on my feed. But policing is my life, sir. As long as I'm the proud owner of this, I will serve my city and my queen to the end. What's that now? My warrant card, sir, proof that I'm a London copper. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty to patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. Sir, and for such a noble cause I cover 20 miles every single day without fail and without a grumble. Because I know that the plodding of my boots is all Londoners need to hear to feel safe and secure. So, fighting crime doesn't appear to come into it then. But sir, just on that one particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. Beate puts up with a lot being married to a Bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care. Oh god. Oh, Pat. Oh, Raleigh. Oh god. What a charming couple. Their young loves is such a joy to behold. If a little over the top, perhaps. And then kindly describe what happened next. Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. Okay, also je länger ich sie mir angucke, dann könnten sie vielleicht dann doch noch vielleicht nicht mehr Kinder sein, aber trotzdem, also die sehen halt echt aus wie Teenager. Allerhöchstens. Two silhouettes. That's right, they were coming towards us, walking up Briar Road in the opposite direction. There was a rather plump figure followed by a scrawny, thin-looking man. That does sound exactly like the victim as pictured in his print and like Mr. Natsume. Yes, unfortunately it does. And you're certain that at the time there was nobody else nearby? Oh yes, quite certain. It was dark, but there are streetlights on Briar Road, you see. There was nobody else around at all. Isn't that right, my darling? Yeah, that's right, of course. There was a light fog on the ground. But Briar Road is dead straight, and you could see a fairly long way down the pavement. And then there's the street lighting as well. I didn't see any other... Before sleep takes a firm hold, your answer please, Mr. Beate. Are you quite sure of what you have just said? Yes, sir. As a copper who spends all day every day keeping watch on the streets, I would swear to it. I'm as sure as my love for Patricia is true. Oh, Pat. Oh, Raleigh. They're still maintaining there was no one else around other than the victim and the attacker. It's starting to seem like that must be how it really happened. Beginning to seem like there's nowhere to run. Well, that didn't stop Mr. Natsume, did it? He fled the scene all too convincingly. Thank you. I believe we have a reasonable, clear idea of the situation just before the incident now. What happened in the crucial moments that followed? Scattered something? What do you mean by that? Oh, well, I couldn't quite make out what it was at the time. But then when we got closer, we realized what it was. Didn't we, darling? Yeah, that's right. It was some old books. I see, old books. Yes, sir, the culprit had dropped a number of them all around where the victim lay on the pavement. Indeed, as clearly pictured in this photographic print. That rotten Japanese man did that when he did the deed. Let's not forget that it remains to be established that the defendant was indeed the attacker. But we saw him, and it was the man in the dock without question, sir. The mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the taut mouth, the snub nose. Everything. Any more insults you want to throw in? That's right, he looked down at the poor, defenseless woman with those terrifying, intense eyes. And then suddenly threw his books onto the pavement and ran away. I see. This is tough. They seem as though they are telling the truth here. May I remind the court that this unambitious testimony comes from a policeman and his wife. Now please, continue. Yes, sir. Was it your husband who went to fetch help? No, I went. I may not be a police officer myself, but I am the proud wife of one after all. Isn't it right, my darling? Yeah, that's right. I asked Mrs. Beatty to go. I was off duty by that point, but a Bobby's never truly off duty, of course, so I felt obliged to stay and guard the scene. Very laudable, Mr. Beatty. Preserving the scene of a crime is a task of considerable importance. That's why I sent Patricia, you see. I told her where to find the right police box. Forgive my ignorance, but what do you mean exactly by the right police box? Depends on a crime scene's location, you see, as to who deals with it. Where the woman was stabbed wasn't actually on my beat, so I told Patricia the way to the police box for the beat the incident fell under, so he could go and report it. I ran there as quickly as I could and asked for help from the Bobby on duty. There is nothing more potent than a young couple in love working together, you know? And thanks to your swift response, the case was quickly resolved. The actions of two model citizens. Oh, please, you're making us blush, isn't he, darling? Yes, sir. What Patricia said, sir. Let's move on, shall we? But surely you wouldn't have been able to see his face by the light of the gas street lamps, would you? We absolutely could. As Londoners have exceptional eyesight, I will have you know. Right. The light from the street lamps was more than enough. And my husband already told you that the fog was only light, didn't he? Yes, and what of the fog? We are famous for it across the globe, I believe, but it's an absolute menace to those of us who have to live with it, of course. Oh, it is. When it's thick, you can't even see the hand at the end of your own arm. Yes, alright, I take your point. Now, could you stop shaking your husband about? The constant fog makes our eyes very sharp, you see. That's why we can tell you for sure and certain that it was that little Japanese man we saw. Can't we, darling? What? Yes, it was the accused, and no mistake. The mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the taut mouth, the snub nose. Unmistakable, sir. As far as this couple's testimony is concerned, there can't be any question. It was the Seki-san they saw running away from the scene of the crime. So that's it, is it? That's their entire testimony? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I hate to admit it, but on hearing the testimony, it really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. Beate saw what they say they saw. Mr. Natsume running away from the scene on Briar Road that day. Yes, I feel the same. So if that's true, where does it leave us? The members of the jury are sure to call for a guilty verdict after this testimony. Oh no, then what do we do? Kazuma-sama were here. What are you trying to say? I think he would try to find a contradiction somewhere else within their testimony. What do you mean, somewhere else? Their statement about seeing Mr. Natsume is unequivocal. Calling that into question won't help. But if you could identify some other part of their testimony which appears to contradict the facts, you might be able to discredit them, to make the jury doubt if the pair's memory of the day is accurate. Put simply, we must focus on finding a discrepancy in these statements somewhere. If we don't, I'm afraid the trial may reach an early and unfavorable conclusion. Why do I always seem to be so up against it? Okay, Mr. Lawyer, sir, can I ask you something? Yes, of course. What is it? Well, you keep asking us all these questions about everything we've told you, so... It seems like you don't believe our testimony. Is that right, sir? Is it? Well, out with it. What? No, it's really not that at all. My husband's a policeman, remember, and I know what I saw. I remember every last detail, everything, like... Oh, I know. What about the books the man dropped? I could tell you the names of every single one. I could, every single one. And you dare to question how reliable my testimony is? That will do, Mrs. Beate. No, it won't do it at all. That Japanese lawyer has no idea what I'm capable of. Even if I decide to forgive him for insulting us, don't think for a minute that Rowley will. I really didn't mean to cause offense. Please put your husband's fists down. Perhaps you would like the opportunity to supplement your testimony, Mrs. Beate? Might that appease you? Oh, thank you, my lord. That would settle things clearly. Wouldn't it, darling? Okay. I could even tell you the name of the 4 books he dropped at the scene. Okay, done. Done, okay. Leg los. So, you're saying that there were 4 books? That's right, I remember all of them. The picture of Monsieur, somebody, what's it, yearnings, meal for someone, and the thing yummy something. I'm sorry, Mrs. Beate, but there is a fundamental flaw in that statement of yours. Oh no, what flaw? Simply that at the scene of the crime, there were only 3 books, not 4. What? Have a good look at this photographic print of the scene of the crime. As you can clearly see, there are only 3 books. But no, that can't be. I saw them. Oh, I know what it is. Yes, you can't fool me. Sorry? It's that big old lump of a dead body. The lady's so large, her corpse is blocking the view of the 4th book, that's all. Let's at least try to remember that the poor woman isn't dead, even if we are insulting her size. No, I'm sorry, Mrs. Beate, but Mr. Natsume couldn't possibly have dropped the 4 books you described. Why not? Fascinating. And from your assured tone, something you can readily substantiate with evidence, I presume? Ah, evidence. Counsel, you will present evidence to substantiate your claim to withdraw it. What proof do you have that the accused did not drop 4 books? Ganz einfach, das Recipe, Mein Gott, Deutsch. Mir fällt das deutsche Wort jetzt noch nicht ein. Der Kaufbeleg, dass er 3 Bücher gekauft hat. Oder ausgeliehen hat. The evidence is right here, in the form of this bookshop recipe. From your books? Yes, this recipe details Mr. Natsume's purchase that day, but as you can see, only 3 books are listed. Therefore, Mr. Natsume would have only dropped 3 books at the scene of the crime. Which means that your powers of observation, madam, cannot be relied upon. So, it cannot be denied that though you say it was the defendant you saw, you could very well be mistaken. Oh no, no. It's plainly evident that it is your powers of deduction that cannot be relied upon, my learned Nipponese friend. What? What cannot be denied is that these 2 witnesses saw the accused running from the scene, a fact that you know very well you have no hope of disproving. So, you've striven to avert attention from that by dint of some inconsequential discrepancies. Would that be fair? He sees right through me. But your plan has somewhat recoiled against you. What are you talking about? It's quite simple. Let me explain with a toast. To the policeman's wife, and her entirely accurate testimony is in every respect. You see, the matter is not up for debate. At the scene on Briar Road, a total of 4 books were most definitely found. But what about the photographic print? It only shows 3 books. Quite right, only 3 can be seen in that print. That print? You mean to say... Allow me to present another, one that shows the victim's head. I don't believe it. It's the 4th book. As you will observe, the 4th book was hidden from view in the original print by the victim's torso. No. Ja, aber das Buch war doch gerade angesenkt, oder? Das ist doch... Da fehlt doch ein Teil von dem Buch. There, you see, look at that, look. Yes. It's just like I said, isn't it, my darling? Yes, sir. Patricia's always right, sir. Let us study the recipe for the books purchased by the accused on the day in question. Mrs. Beate, the titles once again, if you please. Oh yes, of course. The picture of or somebody or other. The picture of Monsieur Lecoq. What's it, yearnings? Canterbury yearnings. A meal for someone. A meal for Gaboureux, in fact. As the court has just heard, the witness remembers the book titles flawlessly, save for a few minor details. Mrs. Beatty's power of recollection can only be described as exceptional. Did you hear that, Rowley? The gentleman paid me a compliment. Yes, sir. Flawless, sir. Patricia is flawless. But there are only 3 books on the recipe, and Mrs. Beate mentioned 4. There's nothing surprising about that. Clearly, the 4th book is which is shown in this photographic print. I'm sorry, counsel, but does that not seem odd? Why should the 4th book be omitted from the recipe? It's not odd at all, my lord. As the photograph clearly shows, the 4th book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, it belongs to the victim. The victim was holding her own book? I wonder what became of that 4th book. Obviously, it wasn't overlooked by the investigating officers at Scotland Yard. I have it here as evidence. You will submit that and the aforementioned photographic print to the court, please, counsel. My pleasure, my lord. Okay, the second crime scene photograph has been entered into the court record. Und vierte Buch. The Lion's Pride. The Lion's Pride war doch ein Buch von Mr. Gary Depp. Das hat er doch gesagt. Dass seine Frau, als die in Rage war, die Bücher aus dem Fenster geschmissen hat. Guck mal, meine Theorie passt. Jetzt fehlt nur noch, dass das Messer auch noch rausgeschmissen hat. Dann ist Mrs. Gary Depp die Täterin. The prosecution rests. I have nothing further to add. What? You seem surprised, my learned friend, but your resistance until now has been in vain, entertaining, yes, but futile. The superior's longer route to the accused lodgings that you tried to establish in your summation examination, and the attempt discrediting of the witness's powers of recollection in your cross-examination. I walked right into this, didn't I? You see, everything we have said is true. Isn't that right, my darling? Yes, pet, marry me, pet. So perhaps the ladies and gentlemen of the jury would like to reconsider their positions. Should the court waste any more time on this Nipponese travesty? Or is the decision you have to make all too apparent already? You have heard all of the witnesses and seen all of the evidence. This trial has run its course. Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid we're in a terrible precarious position. I know, but if I fight back in the wrong way now, I could very well just make matters worse. Think, Ryunosuke, think. What do you do now? Ich würde tatsächlich einen Einspruch erheben, weil das 4. Buch Mr. Gary Depp gehört, weil das hatte er erwähnt. Als wir da mit Herlock waren und geredet haben, hat er, glaube ich, von diesem Buch Lion Sprite geredet gehabt. Und deshalb können wir eigentlich beweisen, dass das 4. Buch, oder, naja, richtig beweisen ist so eine Sache, aber wir wissen ja, dass es nicht dem Opfer gehört. I'm not done yet. No, my learned friend, it's over. That last cross-examination was your final chance to establish a credible defense, and you failed. The die has been cast. There is no more room for debate. Well, it might be over as far as you're concerned, but I can't think of what to say. If I may, Lord von Zieks, it seems somewhat boorish to close down the debate at this point. Your insignificant little Eastern idol must be a lawless hole indeed. For a lowly judicial assistant to have the audacity to intervene at a moment like this. I am, to my shame, still a very inexperienced lawyer. So you will have to forgive me, but I consider my assistant advice essential and her opinions invaluable. Mr. Naruhodo. One of this land's great guiding principles is tolerance, so the court will hear you, madam. Go ahead, Miss Susato, please. Very well. Pray, what insight can you give us? What have we all overlooked in this matter that you see fit to pursue further? Well, the court has been presented with new evidence, but only after the last cross-examination finished. I see. And you believe that this new evidence warrants further examination, do you? So Naruhodo, what do you think? It's just possible that this new evidence might be the decisive proof we've been waiting for. The judge is sure to ask the members of the jury to announce their leanings in a moment. And of course, he's sure to ask you to explain what the crucial piece of evidence is and why. But we must take this opportunity to examine the newly presented evidence as thoroughly as possible. Yes, I understand, and thank you, Miss Susato. This is it. Susato-san has managed to win us one last chance here. I can't let it go to waste. The defense wishes to present evidence, my lord. Very well. The defense may present one further piece of evidence. Evidence that apparently offers a profound insight into the case and has hitherto been overlooked. Okay. Ich möchte das Buch untersuchen. Let me see. It's a book entitled The Lion's Pride. I'm afraid I don't know any English literature. Ich sollte echt... Ich muss unbedingt Literatur googeln, wie man das auf Englisch ausspricht. So it wouldn't be something I've heard. Wait a minute, The Lion's Pride. That's strange. I think I have heard of a book by that name before, and very recently too. It's a title I recognize too, Mr. Naruhodo. Look at this! The book has been badly burned. You're right. You would never be able to read it in this state, especially not the latter pages. What a terrible waste. Judging from the scorched edges of the paper, I think the damage must have occurred very recently. A book recently damaged by fire. Why does that seem to raise a red flag with me? Okay. Den können wir uns nicht mehr angucken. Ja, das Buch gehört Mr. Garrideb und Mr. Garridebs Frau hat das ja aus dem Fenster geschmissen. Und deswegen würde ich gerne das Buch präsentieren. The evidence in question is what we can see from the newly presented photographic print of the crime scene. The fourth book found in the victim's hand. We have already discussed the fourth book at length. Other than it being in the victim's grasp at the time of the incident, no significance has been attached to it. Pursuing the matter further would be a flagrant waste of the court's time, as you well know. Yes, I'm afraid, counsel, I must concur with the prosecution on this matter. When I afforded you this opportunity, you led the court to believe that the evidence in question contained a hitherto undiscovered clue. Ja, hat es doch. So I must insist that you elaborate, counsel. You will identify this clue at once. Do I make myself clear? Oh, yes, my lord. It's, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe the prosecution is trying to avoid a thorough examination of the evidence, which means you may very well be on the right track. Yes, I think I might be right. So, counsel, precisely where is the vital clue to this case which this fourth book conceals? I would ask the court to observe the back of the book in question. The back? What do you... Good gracious! It's been burned to a crisp. So we have to ask ourselves, why was the victim clutching what is clearly an unreadable book? It is undeniable and extremely unnatural thing for her to have been doing. Unnatural, you say? And what of it, my Nipponese friend? Were I to concede to the point, if it bears no relation to the case, there is nothing to discuss. So, should you wish to assert that this fire damage is some veiled clue as to what happened that day, pray, do enlighten us all. What truth does this shared book hide? There is just one possibility here, which I can't quite bring myself to rule out. It's an outside chance, certainly, but worth a try. Alright, I will explain my theory. Don't keep us waiting any longer then, counsel. Explain this theory for us. What are you suggesting that you can ascertain from the fire damage this sorry tome has suffered? Its owner. Oder? Weil ja Mrs. Garrideb den Schrank in Brand gesetzt hat, wo die ganzen Bücher drin waren. My lord, the burn on the back of this book reveals a startling truth about the book's owner. I beg your pardon. But we already know who the book belongs to. The victim was gripping it in her hand as she fell to the floor. After all, it's obviously hers. The question of how this book came to be in the victim's hand has yet to be answered. However, as to the questions of who the book really belongs to and where it originated, the defense has very credible answers. Good gracious, how can you possibly... Very well, I will play along with this futile attempt to delay your inevitable demise. But do remember, the members of the jury may well burn you if your little gamble goes awry. Counsel, the defense response here is very likely to influence the final outcome of this trial. So tell the court, who do you claim is the owner of this burnt book? Jetzt ist die Frage, John Gary Depp oder Joanne Gary Depp? Also eigentlich gehört's ja Mr. Gary Depp, aber Joanne Gary Depp hat das Buch verbrannt und aus dem Fenster geschmissen. Also würde ich, oder ich meine, sie hat es nach ihrem Mann geworfen und dadurch ist es aus dem Fenster geflogen. Ich würde jetzt deswegen mit Joanne Gary Depp hier gehen. The answer is that the book belongs to the couple who own the house where the defendant has his lodgings. A third Mr. and Mrs. Gary Depp. The landlords? And whether this is some extraordinary coincidence or some kind of fated work, I don't know, but of all the people in London, one of the 6 chosen for jury duty in this courtroom today is none other than Mrs. Gary Depp herself. I think I must be mistaken, sir. I'm not Mr. Gary Depp's wife, I'm his maid. Things would be so much easier if you would just drop the pretense. Alright then, how about a simple question for you? Have you ever seen this book in Mr. Gary Depp's house? I would never presume to know all of the books he keeps, sir. This is outlandish behavior. This woman is the accused landlady, you say? You implicate this hard-working member of the public. You besmirch her without a shred of evidence. Your actions are unforgivable. This is not mere conjecture. The defense happens to know that on the day in question, at almost exactly the same time as the victim was stabbed on the pavement below, another incident was taking place in the room on the top floor of Mr. and Mrs. Gary Depp's house. Good lord, what sort of incident, counsel? A fire, my lord. Right to say it was. Happened in the blink of an eye, you know. The whole place filled with smoke. Couldn't see a belly thing. Didn't take long for the fire to spread, of course. The belly furniture started going up as well. Worst of it is, I lost my favorite book called The Lion's Pride. The Lion's Pride? By Jove, the very same title that's the subject of this debate. Oh dear me. This is risible. All you've told the court is that a book by the same name was involved in a fire, in which case it would be reasonable to assume that it was burned to ashes. And entirely unreasonable to infer that it magically removed itself to the scene of the crime. Perhaps it would make more sense if I told you that the cause of the fire was marital discord. Without going into details, it appears that Mrs. Gary Depp was considerably enraged. Apparently, she continued to attack Mr. Gary Depp even amid the flames. Oh, how awful. I can't even imagine being so horrid to the one you love, can you, Rowley? Absolutely not, sir. My Patricia would never raise a finger against me, sir. Had all my favorite old novels in that case, but as soon as the fire got hold of them, that was it. Whoosh, up in smoke. Then the wife started hurling things at me. There was I, back up against the window under heavy enemy fire. Incendiary books incoming, 10 to the dozen. The man had his back up against the window and he had burning books thrown at him. Goodness gracious, or are you suggesting that the book was thrown through a window and landed coincidentally at the scene of the crime? No, a thorough investigation of the surrounding area was conducted the very evening of the incident, and there is no report of the Gary Depp's window pane being broken. That's quite true, we also saw no sign of broken glass when we visited the Gary Depp household. But is it not conceivable that the window was open at the time and not even remotely? Let us not forget the season and the chilling weather that accompanies it. No Londoner would ever leave a window open in the middle of winter. Naja, ich würde schon das Fenster aufmachen, wenn der Bücherschrank daneben brennt und der ganze Raum sich mit Rauch füllt. Does the defense postulate this scenario in all seriousness, counsel? Do you earnestly claim that the book found at the scene was a flaming projectile thrown by Mr. Garadep's wife? I believe it's a possibility, my lord. That's quite enough. Well, I hope that everyone... Well, I hope that everyone can see you for what you are now, you little foreign trickster. You call yourself a lawyer, but you're just a coward. I mean, coward. Really? Claiming that our little tiff set the whole neighborhood alight, honestly. Implying that I'm merely posing as a maid for appearance sakes. How could you? It's nothing to do with this beastly case, not any of it. All you've done is sully our family's name. No, I assure you that was never my intention. Dragging an upstanding citizen's name through the mud simply to divert attention from your failing defense. I should box your ears, that's what I should do. It's utterly unforgivable. Too right. Here we go. How long have we sat here now listening to this Nipponese spouting out his fancy foreign theories? But think about it. At the end of the day, the only person who could possibly have stabbed the victim is that little hunchback with the mustache, and he ran away from the scene too. I do declare you're right. It's true. Yes, what did I tell you? Makes sense to me. Huh? Sorry, what's that? Well, it would appear that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are once again in full agreement. What is your position, Lord Van Zieks? In truth, my lord, I feel these have been unnecessarily protracted proceedings, but then one must always exercise patience in order to savor the best vintage. No, wait. The mystery of the fourth book still hasn't been... If books are your predilection, my learned friend, study them on your own time. What? No forgive the discourtesy this time? In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will now state your individual decisions regarding the defendant's culpability for the court to hear. Thank you for that ambiguous response. That's twice now. It's over. Mr. Naruhodo, don't give up. Miss Susato, have you forgotten? The battle isn't over yet. You're not suggesting... Of course, the defense has the right to another summation examination at this point. You could still convince the juries to change their minds. You have one more chance. My lord, the defense asks to exercise its right to a summation examination. You believe you still have tricks up your sleeve? I don't intend to trick anybody. I intend to uncover the truth. This is no time to be downcast. As long as there's a chance, I have to stay strong and determined. To be continued. Ja, es sieht leider sehr, sehr schlecht für uns aus, aber das Schöne ist, dass wir anscheinend nochmal die Juroren ausfragen dürfen und dann gegeneinander ausspielen können, um dann eben doch nochmal diesen Prozess zu verlängern. Ich finde es auch wirklich tragisch, dass dieser Staatsanwalt prinzipiell gegen alles angeht, was wir zu sagen haben. Natürlich ist ja auch irgendwie sein Job, einen Schuldspruch zu bekommen, aber ich persönlich denke mir immer noch, egal ob Strafverteidiger oder Staatsanwalt, am Ende möchtest du ja das Rechtssystem vertreten und natürlich eigentlich für eine gerechte Strafe sorgen und dass natürlich auch nur wirklich jemand verurteilt wird, der tatsächlich schuldig ist. Und deswegen verstehe ich immer nicht diese Staatsanwälte, die so lange auf dich einprügeln, bis sie einen Schuldspruch bekommen, ohne sich überhaupt zu 100% sicher zu sein, dass der Angeklagte wirklich schuldig ist oder nicht. Ja, das triggert mich ein bisschen. Edward war ja am Anfang so. Franziska von Kama ist so, Manfred von Kama war so und jetzt hier in den Chronicles unser Lord Van Siegs ist ebenfalls so. Und das finde ich dann immer so ein bisschen tragisch. Ja, es wird so gar keine Rücksicht drauf genommen. Ja, es könnte ja sein, dass er vielleicht nicht schuldig ist. Ne, vielleicht ist ja das Messer doch von woanders gekommen. Nee, der ist einfach schuldig. Verklagt den, verurteilt den sofort, damit der Prozess nach 5 Minuten gefühlt vorbei ist. Aber natürlich macht das auch den Reiz des Spiels aus. Natürlich brauchen wir natürlich einen Widersacher, der sehr hartnäckig ist und natürlich alles für einen Schuldspruch tut. Ansonsten glaube ich, wäre das Spiel auch nur halb so spaßig. Aber ja, es sieht so aus, als könnten wir dann im nächsten Part mit einer weiteren Summation Examination beginnen und hoffentlich die Juroren wieder gegeneinander ausspielen und dann natürlich die Verhandlung weiter fortführen. Und ich bin wirklich gespannt, woher dieses Messer kommt. Weil ich bin mir sehr, sehr sicher, dass Herr Natsume eben unschuldig ist. Aber ob jetzt Mrs. Gary da wirklich dann ein Messer dann auch noch nach ihrem Mann geschmissen hat, kann ich mir jetzt eigentlich auch nicht so wirklich vorstellen. Es wäre aber trotzdem eine coole Theorie, wenn mit den Büchern auch noch das Messer rausgeflogen wäre. Aber gut, wir gucken einfach mal, was im nächsten Part passieren wird. Ich bedanke mich wie immer ganz herzlich fürs Zusehen. Hoffe, ihr hattet Spaß. Und wenn ihr mögt, sehen wir uns sehr, sehr gerne im nächsten Part wieder. Bis dahin, ciao.